Hey guys, it is Tanya. I'm here to talk to you about some new things today. I'm excited because first of all, I have on yellow and I have a super amazing puff going on my head. And I wanted to talk to y'all about hair today. You know that on Sundays I have to film because I get ready for church, and usually when I get ready for church I'm like, I can't let this look just be for the morning. I got to do more. So I film. So let's talk about this really fantastic puff right here. Let's talk hair. This puff is so juicy. I pulled my hair all over to the side here. I'll show you the back. So the puff, let me give y'all a close-up of this super glorious puff. I know, right? This puff is all kinds of everything. It's huge, first of all, and it's got silver glory in it, like sparkly silver dust. I love it, y'all. This is the look, guys. I am so feeling this puff right now. I am loving everything about it. But let's talk about hair. I wanted to talk to you about the topic of hair terminology. We've all heard the words. People don't like them. They have been words that were anathema in the community for years, in the Black community, and now they're becoming pseudo acceptable. Those words that were thrown at us when we were little, or maybe not so little, as insults, to insult our hair, to make us feel less than. Words like nappy, kinky, coarse. She has nappy hair. Her hair is so kinky. Her hair is so coarse. Even thick hair sometimes was used as an insult. This came to mind, and I wanted to do a video about it because I was talking to my dad the other day. I don't even remember the topic of conversation, but we were talking about hair, and I said something about somebody having a problem with my kinky hair, or something about somebody's kinky hair, and my dad kind of said, I don't know if I like that word kinky. And I thought, that's interesting, because for me, kinky didn't denote something negative necessarily, but nappy always did. Growing up, if somebody called your hair nappy, then they were trying to insult you, or they were saying that your hair was difficult and unmanageable. But kinky to me just defined a texture which was much more coily and tight and prone, potentially at least, to knotting up and tangling, which wasn't necessarily a negative thing. So, I mean, it's not nice to have knots and tangles, but using the term wasn't necessarily saying it, or wasn't necessarily a derogatory thing. So it got me thinking about this, and I decided, I want to talk about this because I have definitely seen a reclamation in the natural hair movement over the years of words like kinky and coily. Some people have embraced the word nappy. They talk about their napiversary. They talk about happy to be nappy, and we've seen the great shirts reclaiming this word and taking ownership of it. Then you've seen some people who really reject it and resent it and don't like to be called nappy at all, or have their hair referred to as nappy. And there is definitely a dictionary definition of the word. I'll write it here. But I do know that this hair has definitely traditionally been known as nappy. Kinky, coily, nappy though, nappy. It coils together and it likes to tangle up. The strands loop in willy-nilly, whatever way they choose, and you just would not let it go its own way and do its own thing and coil together all on its own. If you had any good sense, like this was what you tried to avoid, right? Because if you came back to deal with this later, you'd have a mess on your hands. Now, ladies, we know, and men, because there are natural men out there for sure, if you want to then sort this out after the style is done, you're not just going to take it and start combing it. I don't comb it anyway, but if I'm going to address it, I'm going to spritz it with water and give it TLC and use some products to help smooth it out. But for years, this was considered problematic, especially if it was in the state that my hair is in right now, in a puff, or in a what would be considered a tangle, or a mass, a nest, or mess. That's how it would be looked at. And if you got those little beads around here, Like I might have a few sitting in here and definitely back here in the kitchen. Nappy hair. You had nappy hair and it was bad hair. That's how it was seen. So I have found it interesting because honestly, I found myself very comfortable with the word kinky. I feel like it's just a texture designation. I have struggled with the word nappy, but I've chosen to use it intentionally and to reclaim it in my own mind and to not let it be something that's offensive. Because while it could be seen, while it has been seen as offensive historically, when people are using it now, describing their hair as naturals, they're using it as a term, not a term of endearment, but as a term that just defines the way the hair coils together and loops around. And they're using it unapologetically. They're saying, yes, that's what my hair does, and that's good because it's meant to do that. Another word that some people have a problem with is the word coarse. Coarse as opposed to fine. And that's a tricky one because I would say that I have fine hair, right? Because the strands, each individual strand is very thin, super, super thin. My children and my husband all have much thicker strands than me. Even though Kalani has pretty fine strands, mine are even finer. But that does not mean that my hair is smooth and silky. And so when we hear coarse, we sometimes think that that means that it's just kinky or coily. And coarse actually doesn't just mean that. It means that that the strands themselves are bigger. They're bigger and they're coily, very coily, kinky. They have twists and turns in them, just like mine, but they're bigger. They're much bigger strands. All these words that we used, coarse, kinky, nappy, they were seen as really negative words, and I'm just happy. I look at the natural hair movement now and I say, these ladies, these people are really onto something because they've tried to reclaim more than for the texture of our hair. They tried to just reclaim words to encourage us about ourselves. You see the same thing happening about dark-skinned women. So you've seen a lot out there these days about dark-skinned women, melanin on fleek. Her melanin is, her melanin is popping, just all of that stuff. And I have to tell y'all that I'm pretty happy about that because growing up, I certainly was that girl who got teased and called all kinds of names for being dark-skinned. I got called some names that were just, I look back now and I'm like, how did y'all think that up? There's so much self-hatred in those terms. Ooh, African booty scratcher, tar baby, just, let's see what else. Black and crispy, ugly black monkey, just all kinds of stuff. And this was always from black people, never from people who weren't black, because they didn't care about how dark I was. They just knew that I was black. That's all that mattered to them, like to the non-black people. But within our own community, we know colorism does exist, and I was definitely on the receiving end of some negativity as a child. Once I got into my mid-teens, we moved into a pretty homogenous environment that was pretty much all white. No, it wasn't all white. They were also Asians. But there weren't a whole lot of black kids around, and it was actually a safer environment emotionally for me when it came to things like race and colorism. So nowadays we're seeing this shift, and Lupita was one of the people that you saw on the crest of that wave right at the beginning. Maybe it wasn't right at the beginning, but early on you started to see people talk about how beautiful she was and all of this and that, and she's gorgeous. You started to see white people talk about it as well, but I was happy to see more black people saying, look at how pretty she is, her skin is so beautiful, it's so smooth, look at her bone structure, and they just started acknowledging that this was a beautiful dark-skinned woman. Now there are still a lot of people who are not acknowledging the beauty of dark women, but there are many who are, and I so appreciate that. I appreciate that the conversation has shifted. And it may have started even earlier with the movie Oprah made, Dark Girls. Some people took issue with that, and it's been super interesting to see the conversation shift. And now that you have people emphasizing the beauty that's in dark skin and darker tones of black people, you see this response, not from everyone who's lighter, but you've definitely seen a response that's come up in reaction to that. To say, why can't we say that all black people are attractive? Why does it have to just be dark ones? And I thought, Now this is a really interesting conversation because, you know, when something is denied for so long, there's almost like there's a negative void that has to be filled before the playing ground is even and you can start moving up. And I kind of see this input into dark-skinned women as that. I likened it to affirmative action when I was talking to my dad and stepmom the other day. I said, you know, it's kind of like affirmative action for dark-skinned people. There is this overemphasis of the beauty of dark-skinned people, not, and it should never, you know, put down brown skin or light skinned people, but there's a very high emphasis in the beauty of dark skinned people just to get kind of in the minds of people to an even playing field, and hopefully at some point they will both be seen as equally beautiful. It's an interesting conversation. I don't know where it will go, but I will say that I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. I have not had ever from white people negative commentary about being dark skinned. If they were going to have an issue with me for being black, they were going to have an issue with me for being black, period. It didn't have anything to do with light, dark, you black. Like, that's how it's seen by people who aren't black. It's us, it's black people. And I don't know, but my experience, obviously having lived here and grown up here, my experience has been that it's from Black Americans that we kind of have an issue with this. If you are not American, you can let me know if colorism is an issue outside of America and the Americas. Now, I do know that, you know, there's skin bleaching and lightening happening all over the world, and that in Africa, in different countries, there are people who are bent on lightening their skin. I've had friends from Nigeria tell me this is a huge issue and it's a problem. So I would imagine colorism is an issue there as well. But I know I've experienced it here, and it's something that I'm glad is changing, because this is our issue. We as black people have to do better and not make it such a negative thing because someone is dark. Why would that be something that's not attractive? Why would that be something that's less than? It's the way that we're made, and it's beautiful. So anyway, guys, this was more of a ramble, but it was just something that was on my mind after the conversation with my dad about, or that he kind of sparked in my mind when we talked about the word kinky, and you know, then the idea of nappy and coarse. What other words do you guys know? Do you have words that you heard growing up that were negative or derogatory words, or that were used in a way that left a mark in your mind, kind of helped you, kind of caused you to see them as negative when they were used in reference to your natural hair? Let me know. I would be really curious if you have other words that are floating around in your head. I'd love to know them. Share them in the comment section and talk about it. Start a discussion, guys. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. All right? Alrighty, guys. Y'all have a good day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Hey, guys. Good morning. All right, so as I told you last week, it was Western Easter, and this week is Eastern Holy Week.